Welcome back to She is Serious, a podcast where we showcase female athletes and their impact beyond the game. Each week, we will be bringing on influential women in the world of sports to tell their stories and why they are so much more than athletes. I'm your co-host, Taylor Hall, a college basketball player at Biola University and fitness influencer.
I am Ashley White, former collegiate women's basketball manager, advocate for women's sports, and a current writer blogger for Beautiful Ballers.
And this is why it's time that female athletes are taken
seriously.
Let's get started, baby. We're super excited to have Ashley's sister on, Amanda. She was a former collegiate softball player and now is a softball coach and runs her own business. So she is making a huge difference in the world. So we want her to take us through her steps of how she's been able to become so successful after college. Without further ado, let's get started. What's up, Amanda?
Hey, how are y'all?
You're blessed. How are you doing?
So good. As I was saying earlier, I just got done for the day. And we had actually, you caught me after the day after our very first set of games that I've actually been a head coach at the college level. So really, really, really exciting.
Congrats.
Yeah, I know.
How was that for you? Was it stressful, easy? Were you like, I got it in the bag, or what?
No, absolutely not. I feel like probably everybody their first time coaching is trying to check off boxes. I did this, I did that, trying not to look like a fool. So, and I mean, I have coaching experience. It's just this, it's a little bit more strict in college. You don't get away with certain things. So it was just managing everything and making sure that it was smooth. And it was a very long day and a very long ride back. So that yeah. So it was a lot, but it was absolutely I don't want to do anything else. So
I'm sure you killed it.
It was lovely. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So, Amanda, I have a question for you. You want to explain what is your sports story?
So, the way that I got into sports, both of our parents are super athletic. So, of course, we're going to do something. But I think it was coach pitch. We never did t-ball. And then I got into fast pitch really early. When I was 10, and it was the only thing I wanted to do, which seems kind of silly because both of our parents played tennis. So you would think that we would have played tennis, but
oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Well, and both pretty good at tennis, but none of us were we just were really into it. But I got into softball really early, and that was the one sport that I absolutely really loved. Nothing could get me out of it. And then I got to college and it was almost a completely different experience than what I had growing up in high school and middle school and travel. So I'm very fortunate that I ended up where I ended up, which was Meredith. So I absolutely loved it there.
Did you spend all 4 years there at Meredith?
I did, and it was the best 4 years of my life. Sort of. It was a very good 4 years of my life, to be in college and to, have the experience that I had. I don't think I would have gotten a better experience anywhere else. And particularly the coach that I had, the level that I played at was way more than I thought that I could achieve. So absolutely was super grateful. But definitely got into it just because we were a very athletic family.
That's so cool. I just love when families are all athletes, and it's cool that you guys get to feed off of each other. It's just me and my brother, but it's been cool to grow up with him, and we all play the same sport, my brother, my dad, and I. And so we were always able to get out on the basketball court and play pig together, play 21, whatever. It's always so fun when everyone's an athlete. So that's so cool.
Yeah, and super acceptable too. I get to be strong and I don't know if we can cuss here, but
Yes. So true. I always wanted to be more of like a tomboy. Like I wanted to make sure people knew that I played basketball. Like I was in there with those basketball shirts every day. Like you did not see me with dresses on, skirts, right? Like it's like the best when you're an athlete because you don't even have to like dress up or anything. Just go in sweats, go in your t-shirt, like whatever. Like everyone knows we're an athlete, so.
Yeah, and all the swag that comes with it, like, I mean. But like nowadays, I was just at a game, and I'm like, seeing these girls, and I'm like, so much swag. Like, I wish that, and maybe I should have just done it, but like, I wish, and I had a little swag, but I wish like I like walked with as much swag as I see all these guys.
Yes,
just,
girl, that's so
because
true.
you're an athlete, you're a jock. Like, I'm good at this. Like, you're gonna know it.
Well, the crazy thing is, Taylor, I will say, my sister and I played school ball against each other since we both played at different schools. And her middle school and my middle school played against each other. And I was the only person on my middle school team that would hit off of her. Everybody else got struck out by her. But I was the only one that hit off of her. The thing was, because I knew how she played and how she pitched and stuff, but folks didn't know that.
But she attended like all my games.
Oh my gosh, were you so annoyed, Amanda? You're like, oh my god, my sister.
So good. I hope I don't hit her. That's pretty much it. I hope I don't hit her. I hit a pretty, like, I would hit batters. I just did. No, I didn't really care about it, but I did. And that was, I think that was like the one thing I really hope I don't hit her.
Oh my gosh.
Me, so, it worked out. She got in my head, and she got to hit off of me. That is the story.
It was because she would try. The fact was, she tried to play basketball against me, or she tried, but she didn't do so well.
She tried.
She didn't do so well. But the thing was, we both played softball, but she was more of a softball player. I was more of the basketball player. And like she said, we both came from families of athletes. So, like, both of our parents played tennis. My mom was a cheerleader, too. Our mom was a cheerleader, too. But our dad was also a basketball player, too. But he was more into tennis, though. But
look at you guys, running in the family. It's in the blood. That's sick. So who inspired you, I guess, was your parents and your family. Who did you look up to as a softball player, like growing up? Like who was someone that you really wanted to be?
I think there's a lot of people, and so one Olympic athlete that like was super impactful when I was growing up was Crystal Bustos, and that did not like anywhere near her size. Height, everything. She was a massive hitter, and that was the first time I was like, I've never, like, imagined anybody hitting a ball so ridiculously far. And I was a power hitter, and I always thought that I was maybe a little bit taller, like, than I was when I was younger. But then as I grew up, like, everybody just skyrocketed above me, so I was very stagnant for a good portion of, like, middle school and high school. So I didn't think I was that big, but, like, I knew that I carried a lot of power. And I was like, okay, cool, fine. But when, like, seeing her was like, oh, yeah, that is, like, super, super, super cool to be, like, blasting balls over fences and, like, absolutely no chance of anybody, like, they just don't even look to see where the ball's going. So that was somebody that was, like, super impactful. And then I would say, man, and I can't remember her name. There's a couple of people. So Natasha Watley was always somebody who was like super smooth, and she was a stopper, but like as a fielder was like that sort of like somebody I should aspire to be. And then the one really big college player, and I can't remember her name, and I wish she had made the Olympics, so I actually would have remembered her name, but I think she was playing in college at the time. But she was playing at Northwestern, and they made the World Series, and I think it was like in must have been like 2007. But she was a redhead. I was referred to as a redhead. I'm like brown, red, blonde, whatever you want to call my hair.
All of it.
And it was very like, and it sounds really silly, but like her hair was a little crazy. She's very athletic. She was shorts up. Like she was baller. I think she got hit in the World Series and she took it so well. Like she got a little hurt, but she like walked it off a little bit, I think. But like that mind, like it was females that it's okay to be tough. It looks super awesome. This is how you handle yourself. That were like super impactful to me. So it was a variety of different people that were. And the thing that almost stinks is like I have a terrible memory, but you know LeBron James and like Alex Rodriguez, because their names are said so much and they're obviously like household names. And I wish that those people were like their names were said so much. And I went to go find those that were in the Olympics because their name was said so much, but we just don't have a professional league. So. Anyways, I digress. But shortstop in Northwestern back in the day, Crystal Bustos and Natasha Watley were people that I absolutely 100% looked up to.
That's cool. So the strong female who was like pushing it forward, who didn't care about like nothing else but just like winning and just like being that strong force. That's dope. I love strong females. I mean, that's what our show is about. You know what I mean? Like. It's time that women are taken seriously and strong women are leading the way. So that's like, I look up to those people too.
Amanda, I do have a question because you already know what it is. How were you able to transition from being a collegiate player to now owning, say, your own softball business and coaching college softball? Like, how were you able to transition from one phase to another?
So it definitely wasn't immediate. I knew that I wanted to be a coach, but I had taken as a service grant loan, so I had to pay back in service years to teach, which is something that I wanted to do. Absolutely wanted to teach. I knew that. So I was like, well, I'll be a teacher and then a high school coach, and it'll work out. I'll be able to, dip my feet in the water and it'll be good. I didn't really imagine myself as a college coach, but once I started teaching, and I had a really good group of colleagues at my first school that really helped me get my feet set in stone, like form an identity of who I needed to be a strong leader. And that was in the classroom. That was getting kids to do what was necessary, right? Getting them focused, making them feel good about the process of learning. When I figured that out, I became a lot better coach, and I started to organize different softball leagues or organize different groups of girls that were coming together. So the first one was in Greensboro, and it was two like rival schools. In softball, it wasn't like a super rivalry, but it was girls that just wanted to play, and they wanted a good coach to help them through that process. So I actually got to play with those girls because it was a 15 and up league, which we don't get to play a lot after college. Like there's not these leagues where I have to go play slow pitch, and I absolutely hate it. Maybe if I go try for like a women's team or something like that, I'll like it a little bit, but I hate it. It's not the intensity. It's not as fast. I don't like it. But, so it was really fun because I got to interact with them. So that was like the first time where I was like, okay, like I can make a little bit more of an impact. And then later on, I started like the first American Legion team that was in the Wilmington area and organized that. I was the coach of two of those teams. And then I found myself at Brunswick assisting when I couldn't really like figure out a way to do it at the high school that I was at, like in the same capacity. I was just sort of like supporting, which wasn't like me. Like I learned the type of coach I am. I need a little bit more responsibility, a little bit more direct and impact, whether it's with pitchers or hitters or as a head coach. Like I needed that impact.
So you like to have a relationship with your players as a coach, rather than
not just to be there throwing front toss. That's not for me. That's not me being helpful. So I transitioned to being this assistant coach, and then that led to being the head coach like less than a year later. And then it's been building the brand, the program, which I've hated and enjoyed at the same time. It's really hard work. So once I once I started to do that, and I had, I had these skills I didn't think I had, but I had them. I was really good. COVID was a time for me to like really branch out. I got to create a lot of my stuff, and when I figured out I could, because I had the skills, a lot of the skills that I actually developed when I was in college. Time management is like a huge thing, and you'd think that that's not a big thing, but it is. It's managing your time and making sure that you make certain deadlines, and deadlines for yourself, not just somebody else putting deadlines on you. It's the creativity, it's the organization, it's, thinking outside the box, it's having the confidence to do things. All of that led to me having the confidence to do something different, which was starting my own business, not just doing instruction, but actually creating it into a brand of business so that I could essentially have an impact that I didn't think that I couldn't dream that I was like making, but now I am, and it's flowing and it's great. And it's exactly like the person I felt like I needed to be, but I didn't know how that was going to be crafted and formed. And I couldn't be happier. I love my time teaching. Absolutely. But this is a completely different experience that fulfills me in a completely different way.
That is so cool to hear that your experience as a college athlete, because I'm a college athlete right now and I'm going to be graduating this semester. So it's crazy to think that I'm going to go out to the real world. And like my ultimate goal is to be a businesswoman. So it's so cool to hear all of those tools and everything that you learned as a college athlete, like really actually translated into the real world. So what is your softball business, and like what does it entail? What makes it different than other softball like companies or brands out there?
So my softball business is essentially instruction and development. So that can be in a lot of different ways. So it's not always just with girls, but it's very intentional when it is with young athletes. And it's very intentional when we do clinics. It's very intentional when we do lessons. It's very intentional when we do camps. The entire goal is to create environments and situations and experiences for girls that either guys are used to having, so they develop quicker, faster, or it's just to develop a system where girls can like thrive and enjoy themselves. I remember when I was growing up, it wasn't always the most positive experience, and I wish it was. So if I could create that experience for my girls, then they could emotionally develop a little bit faster, or they can go through certain scenarios and know that they're going to be supported. So that was a really big thing with my business. And the other portion that I found that I'm providing, but I'm also like asking people to provide for me, or seeking out, is like mentorship. So I go to coaches conventions and clinics. I go receive help because there is stuff that we don't think about. There's also like this evolving process with softball, women's fast pitch, as it's developed, and it's not even that old, that we're constantly learning. If you look over the last 20 years, I mean, it's completely different the way that things are functioning. So to keep up with the latest trends is to provide the best service for the girls in the area, and they can provide it for me. And that's like the ultimate goal for my business, is to provide something that only the top players get. The girls, that are at FSU and UCLA, they get it from people that are close to them, that are like the top of their game. They only have so much, space, and they're like hours and hours and hours away. Remembering I had traveled 3 hours for an entire year consistently for a lesson, and 3 hours one way. So that's a whole day of traveling just to provide a service that I needed for myself. My mom thought that I needed for me, where I developed a lot during that process. So bringing it back to an area that I grew up in, and an area that absolutely loves softball. So that's essentially what yeah. And but also have the confidence to do it, because you get put down a lot. I mean, softball is definitely a sport, I think, that isn't well coached, because there isn't a lot of training involved. Anybody can be a softball coach. Mm-hmm. Like, I think in soccer and in volleyball, you have, and I know in volleyball because I've coached it, you have all these processes that you have to go through to even be able to be on the court with the girls at a tournament. And there's not that for softball. So, wow. Yeah, so anybody can be. So then how do we fulfill the need for all of these athletes that have the potential to be amazing, how do we develop them?
Right, or not even know about softball because it's such an unknown sport. Like, I know where I grew up, softball was there wasn't a lot of softball players. So the fact that you're finding that need and you're filling that, it's going to spread the awareness of the sport in general. And then providing those sources for young girls is like so awesome. That's so cool to hear what you do. That's really, really impactful for the next generation, for the future of softball and everything.
Yeah.
So Amanda, has there been times where do you feel like mental health has played a part in softball, like of discussion, like in the last, say, 5 years? Do you think it has been played a part in it?
Yeah, I mean, a huge part. So in two different levels. So you have the coach's side and then you have the player's side. And it's really big discussion when we go to convention and we talk about it. So from the player side, it has to do a lot with understanding all the pressures and the fact that girls are leaving the sport really early because there isn't that training that's going involved. There isn't that positive environment. Again, like I said, anybody can do it. Just like you hear the phrase, like, anybody can be a parent type of thing, where there should be, like a book or like a test before you're allowed to be a parent, which is not the case. But everybody has a right to, just like everybody has a right to influence their kids when they're so young and have that experience with them to throw, in the backyard, play catch or do whatever just to make it enjoyable. And I think having that as a goal is really important when it comes to them being so young. If they have that positive experience, they're going to latch on a lot longer. They'll be able to persevere through things because they love it. They have an attachment to it. It's like family for them, where you work through it even though it's really difficult. So it is a really big issue. And then all the stresses of it. Like, I think there are not as many female role models for girls like there are for males, like either with dads that played, where they talk through certain scenarios of how to time manage, is this worth your time? They get told that, like, maybe it's not. So they get fed that process, like, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I have other things that I need to go do in life. And this is like, for college, it's their time. Like, you're allowed to do anything that you want, or should be allowed to do anything you want. You don't have to go get a job, right? So like, you can figure out ways. Yeah, you can figure out ways to make all of these things work, and this is your time. Because a lot of, like in softball, there's not a lot of opportunities after to play for most. And I would even say, like, at the recreational, like, adults going out and playing, there's volleyball, there's sand, there's indoor, there's, slow pitch, which is not super comparable. It's not, because I don't play the same position that I did in college when I play slow pitch. So I don't even hit from the same side because it just is completely different. But it's just different. So mental health is really important to developing women into really strong-minded individuals, where when they get into leadership roles, they're not swayed to think certain ways just because, it's a status quo. To persevere through difficult situations where they can be put down just because it's a normal thing, right? You get caught sort of in this, like, hierarchy, or, you have to be, like, tough in a situation. Can a woman really be tough? Talking to and handling certain situations, like, yes, we absolutely can, because we've gone through these same processes that you have. They've just been in, like, a little bit of different environments, but it's the same situation, so there's no reason why I can't handle it. I just need to be trained how to.
Absolutely. I think that's not said enough, because I think that, a lot of times it's like men are just expected to be hard-headed, and they're like, oh, they've gone through tough situations, so they can already be prepped and prepared, equipped for the job or whatever is ahead in life. But a lot of times it's like, oh, women are too weak, or women might not be able to handle this emotionally. Like, no, we are just as strong, if not stronger than men, because we've been put down so many times in so many situations that, like, when we've done that, especially in sport, especially women, female athletes, like, we've been through so much that I don't know if you understand, like, we are very, very equipped. We're very mentally strong. We're able to do a lot. And I think that like preparing girls from a young age will bring so many more impactful women in our world in the future.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, so thinking of it like this, so as we develop as women, there are certain things that we're told we can't do. And when we break that mold, we get told that maybe we shouldn't. And one of the things right now, and I absolutely love, somebody posted, I don't know who it was, but it was definitely a basketball athlete, a female athlete, and it was like 2023 is the year that women get to trash talk. Because that's like, we get too, it looks bad because we get too emotional, like we're taking it personally. But guys do it all the time. They get the backflip, they get to like, when I tell you, it's Samantha Snow. It's Samantha Snow at Oklahoma State. It did a huge backflip, and it was just this whole big controversy. And it's like, you see all the guys, and they do it all the time, and you're getting hype, and then you get offended because she shouldn't be acting that way. And it's like, it's the same freaking game. Like, we all are hype. Like, you're telling us that we can't be too hype, and then we can't be too emotionally down, as guys are, and it's not you. That's really hard to control. So then you wonder why it's no longer fun. Why we, exit the sport, or why we're emotionally like trying to figure out who we're even allowed to be.
Right. Gosh, completely true. Because this year we just had a couple fights like in college women's basketball, and so now the referees are on the lookout, and they're like, oh my gosh, if anything gets out of control or anything, they're just going to automatically call a T. So like, we had a meeting this year with our coach, and he said, you guys are going to be on that lookout this year, so you can't say and one. You can't, like, I was like, you can't say and one because, that's getting too emotional. Like, hello?
Because,
like, I don't understand, like, why can't we show emotions? Like, we're athletes, too, and we have just as much emotion. We just put as much heart and tears and grit and grind every single day into the sport, and when we're out there competing, like, we're not allowed to say and one. Like, that was just the silliest thing to me. So they're really on the lookout this year because women are getting too emotional in the game.
Well, here's the thing. Angel Reese of LSU, she said and one after she made a bucket against Texas A&M, and she got teed for it. Also, Angel Reese said also something similar to what Amanda was describing about, like, the Angel Reese had a whole tweet how, people thought she was too this and too that, like she was this. But, like, she's a contender to be SEC Player of the Year along with Leah Boston. She's also a contender to be National Player of the Year. If not, she's in the top of it. Because I think a lot of people get confused of, when we show passion, they think it's aggression or we emotional. But when a man shows passion, he's all like, yes. Like, he's like,
Like, it's inspirational. And it's almost, it's like laughable, almost like a child, how, like, aggressive men at such an old age, I say old, at such a, like, mature age, like, get.
Yeah,
and then and then we're not allowed to do that. It's just like we're insanely crazy. Just by the way, I mispronounced her. It's Samantha Show. She put on a show, and it was absolutely amazing at Oklahoma State with the bat flip. You look up her name, and it's Samantha Show bat flip. Like this, like it is, like it's her thing, and I think that should absolutely be allowed because we haven't gotten to show that. So it. Like, I get it. You want everybody to just sort of calm down and whatever, but, like, that's sort of, like, the sport, right? Like, there are sportsmanship, like, things, and then there's being hyped for your team. And when you have to do that, you don't get to go.
They're two totally separate things. Like, when you're in a game and you're emotional, and you just did a great move, a great finish on somebody, and you say, and one, because your emotions are showing, that's not a detriment to a team. That's not trying to be too aggressive. That's, like, you're hype and you're getting your team hyped up too with you. So that's some good emotion right there that we should be able to show. And I just don't understand, like, it's crazy to me to the point where it's gone, where the refs are going to call technicals on that. Like, That's crazy.
Call it on the guys. Call it on the guys.
Call
These girls, call it on both ways. Both ways.
Right.
Tell me why I thought she said back flip, not bat flip.
No back.
I looked
Oh my God, you know what? I was thinking you were saying that too this whole time. I was like, okay,
No, the whole back flip, which is, I think it's like what you're saying, in the and one. It's a very, like, that you hit the home run. Let's chuck it up. Because we all know. And then I'll go, around the bases. But, like, it's an emotionally charged moment. And I think that might have been in the Super Regionals or it was in the World Series a few years back.
This was, I just said, this was, I just saw it. It was, the one I saw was against Florida. The one she did.
That might have been the World Series.
And it was in 2019.
Yeah.
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
And it was amazing.
So another one we can't do is after anything happens, if you score a bucket or something, you know how sometimes like you stare down your defender, just like I got
the
you
intimidation,
kind of, we can't do that no more either. We can't do that anymore. That's
but guys can. But guys can.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, we can't show our emotion by staring at somebody. Like that's too offensive. Who is that offending? Like crazy. So do you think that there should be more awareness brought to this, Amanda? And then also, like, how do you think that women, like, how do we find a balance when we keep being put down for showing emotions? Like, why can't we be emotional, but why can men be emotional? And why is that, like, allowed?
So I feel like you need to ask the women that are actually playing if this is okay, like if they find offense to it, because I feel like you have a lot of men that are talking for women because that's what they don't really want to see.
And I don't find any offense to that. If someone says and one on me, that makes me more motivated to go back down in the court and get a bucket on them. You know what I mean?
I'll show if someone were to come at me like that and be like, like the best example, which was, at the time, like maybe excessive, like, what are you doing? I roll my eyes, but
yeah,
it was in a game and they were doing like a fake tag or whatever. And they it was like a tag slap and, but the play was over at first. Like they were getting a little emotionally charged and it wasn't like I found like super offensive. Like, oh my God, she hit me. It's just like, okay. They're getting a little tense here, but whatever. Like, I don't care. Like, if I'm allowed to be, you're allowed to be, right? If, we get a huge win and you're in softball, we play double headers and you're allowed to play us next. Like, it's almost offensive and it's like it's really boring if they don't come back in such a way where they're like hype. Like, the energy has to be brought. And that's,
you want us to just give up? Like,
yeah.
Right? You don't want us to go out there and compete like we're competitors. Are women not allowed to be competitors? Is that what's going on? Like, I just don't understand. Because to me, it makes the game more competitive. Like you said, if someone comes down, they do something maybe disrespectful. Okay, well, guess what? I'm going to go down on the other end, make a move, get a bucket, and then I'm going to stare you in the face too. Like, we're competitors. You know what I mean? So
like, if I'm not complaining about it, it's okay, right? If I bring it up as something, look, I thought that was unsportsmanlike, to an umpire or something, like, cool. If it is somebody who is just sort of taking control of the situation that has no business because they're not in the mix of it, then I think it's just unnecessary and disrespectful, and it just doesn't need to be said. So
absolutely,
like you said, the situation that you're having.
Honestly, whenever I play, I less talk and just let my game play. Because honestly, I don't know. I felt like I couldn't trash talk nobody unless it gets to that point. But even when I don't trash talk, I will say, I just be careful with what I say, because I always say if I talk too much, then something may happen. Like, I always believe in karma, like, oh, don't say anything unless you're ready to have that to be said to you too.
Right.
So, but it is what it is. So
and like you said, different people have different ways of like let your game speak for yourself. Like, I feel like for the most part, I let my game speak for itself. And sometimes here and there, I'm like, oh my God, like if I'm going off and one, you know what I mean? But just like little things like that, I think are not harmful, but it definitely depends on what the player is saying. Like there is some stuff where it's like, okay, like that's not cool. And then like you said, Amanda, like if it's brought up to the ref or the umpire or something like that, where like that's an issue, then okay, sure, then we can address it then. But I just think putting a blanket statement over it and just saying like, you can't say and one, you can't stare a player in the face. Like I just think that that's a little overboard, you know, because there's different.
It's letting the players make decisions of how like they can get treated. You know, it's like this like male defense of like heroism and oh gosh, I'm not thinking of the word right now. Chivalry. Like I need a blanket statement to protect me from like somebody smack talking. Like I wasn't offended.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna come back and do it. I mean, I wasn't offended. I'm fine. We need to make it a serious situation.
Absolutely, absolutely. So in such a, I guess is in softball, I guess baseball is probably like a big competitor on the male side. Why is it that baseball gets so much publicity and they have a professional league, but softball, on the other hand, does not? Where myself, I personally, not just because I'm a woman, but I like watching softball more just because it's faster. Like, I don't know if anyone, all the listeners know, but it's fast pitch, for a reason, because it's more exciting to watch, I think. So what's your take on that?
It's intense too, and it's very fun.
So, like a bit of history, softball, and particularly women in softball and basket softball, like is really only introduced in the 90s. Like it's before then, but in terms of like everywhere. So in this area, where I am in Wilmington, like somewhere in like the early, I think it was the late 90s that they actually allowed for the high schools to transition fully to fast pitch. So you really only have like maybe 30 years now where you have like fast pitch softball everywhere. So before that, it's in the college, but they're not super competitive. They're not getting the funding. They're not getting, like, I think the big thing is funding and the acceptability and trying to figure out the business plan fund is like the main reason why you don't have these like big professional leagues. But like right now is sort of like a renaissance. So you have Athletes Unlimited right now and then WPF. Before you had National Professional Fast Pitch, so NPF, and the first time that anybody ever, like a softball player, got $1 million contract was Monica Abbott. But the fact that the only outlet really was, professional league in Japan, it's really big there, but only the top tier go. And then there's not a lot of opportunity. There's sort of these like, sort of stay with the host family and maybe make a little bit enough to eat, and is not anything that a woman's going to get into, because we've been trained that like since Title IX we've gotten these opportunities. Like you can't not make money. You can't not, like, what is it for you to like waste this opportunity? I feel like for men, they often will set aside these big paying jobs for the athletic careers. Like they're 30 and they're still in the minor leagues for their shot to make it, and they're not making something that is, maybe acceptable for a family too. So for women, I think they decide that that's not an option for them very early. So that's one end. But now you have this sort of like renaissance of opportunity. So for Athletes Unlimited, they got to choose their teams. They coached each other. They did a lot of different things. That was revolutionary in terms of how this is going to be constructed. And then after COVID, when the National Professional Fast Pitch League ended, Lauren Chamberlain, who was the queen of softball during her time, I think one of the first ones that really, like, you could recognize that she was a part of a brand. Like, she was she's getting some sponsorship from a brand that was really big. And so she's now the commissioner, and I think she's one of the youngest commissioners, if not the youngest, of any professional league. She's killing it. And she has linked in with all these athletes that are playing at a very high level that, like, no, get into it, like continue, like, we will provide ways for you to be able to do this, at least competitively, to like some type of living wage. Like, there are ways to do it. And then for the first time, I think we've had, like, there's an MLB player. He's either current or retired. He is sponsoring a team, a women's fast pitch team.
Okay,
which is
that's
awesome.
So we need more of that. We need more of that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you have guys that are making like $500,000. So what is it if you get like a couple of guys that are making $500,000 that have some investment in softball because maybe they've seen their sister play, or, you know, maybe they, you know, were always at the games because they felt some type of connection to it since they play baseball, softball. There is a link there. Like, you have guys who are supportive of it. Why not? Like, that would be a really big step, because these teams aren't like super big. You just, like, the fanship will take care of itself. So if you look at the viewership between baseball and softball during the Women's College World Series, like, we got more views. It's a cult following, if you want to call it that, because there's a very targeted audience of people that go watch it. It's not, you know, everybody goes watch the World Series because, or the MLB World Series because it's on TV at a bar. Like, and right. Now it's sort of that same thing because it's, you know, something like 5, 6, 7 days, which they have expanded because, respectfully, our arms, I understand, you know, are a little bit more natural motion underhand, but good God, the amount of, like, it's 7 innings of very intense play and movement, and, like, we need more time, so that was a good thing. But yeah, it's just it's a lot of different things. I think that there needs to be more investment with people that can and have more ties to it as a way to, like, essentially provide opportunities. And I will say this, the best thing that has come from the NLI deals that people are getting, which they're really focused on the men, are the women that are actually making themselves known to kids when they actually follow them. Once they get out of college, they weren't following them because they had nowhere to go. There's nothing. But now they're sponsored by brands. Their faces are all the, you know, they're out there. The Olympics are sort of back. The national teams. We won't have it in Paris, but the branding is a really big thing. It's a really great thing for women. It's a way for them to have the experience of the professional athletes on the men's side in MLB once it gets to be super great. It's like a little mini version of it, but it's a respectable version of it. All of these girls around.
She's an NIL athlete too, Amanda. Taylor's an NIL athlete too. Hello.
So it must be amazing.
Oh, it's so amazing because it's able to, like, use our platform, and because there's, like you said, there's not so many opportunities for us to continue. Like, even in women's basketball, only the top of the top make it to the professional level. Do you know what I mean? And then, or else you're playing overseas and you're getting paid nothing. Like, it's not like people are going overseas for the most part, unless you're the best of the best, to make a living. It's just, like, for the experience. So if we want to, you know, start actually making money, this is an awesome way. The NIL is an awesome way to start doing it, because then, like you said, we're making a name for ourselves, and also being able to impact the younger generation that might not know about, like, women's softball in college or women's basketball. Like, hey, go out here and do it and look at these opportunities. You can start to work with brands. You can make your name known, and then start, if you want to be a businesswoman and you want to create a brand for yourself, like, there's opportunities, and this is why you should start playing softball and then continue playing softball or continue playing whatever sport that you are playing, because, like, this is just great opportunities, not only for college athletes, but beyond. Like, I think just me being an NIL athlete right now, like, people don't know that about Biola basketball. Like, no one knows basically where that is. It's in Southern California, but you know what I mean? It's a different group basketball team. But it's cool that I'm able to use even this small platform and work with these brands, and I'm getting, like, brand experience, and then I'm going to be able to take that past college, you know? Because basketball, the ball's going to stop bouncing at some point. And I think what you said is, like, a lot of girls might not see a future with softball because it's like there's no pro league or anything. So, like, why even put time or effort into playing that? Which is sad. And so maybe that's why we see such a dropout rate at such a young age. But, like, if more publicity is made about it and more people know about the game, like you said, everything's going to take care of itself. So the game is going to continue to grow. And so, like, I think this is a great first step to NIL, and I hope that we can bring more awareness to these different sports, especially women's sports like softball, that a lot of people don't know about, because I hope that in the future we can create a professional league so women want to stay in the sport because they can see this, as a job. Maybe not playing, but they can also do other things in that industry, right? Maybe it involves working with other softball brands, or that people love softball, like they want to stay in the game, but it's like they don't see why they would want to right now because there's no money involved. But maybe that's something that we can change. We can change the stigma.
Yeah. I mean, I think in the future, definitely, it'll be somewhat of a living, like, comparable, I would say, to, like, teaching. Which, if you ask me which one I want to do, I will spend every year as long as I can before going into teaching, or really coaching, because coaching doesn't pay that much until you get to, like, Division I. Right. Coach Division II. Like, you're not making that much, so there's always those side hustles, and that's what's happening right now. Like, the girls that are playing professionally, like, they've worked it so that they can play, and they get all that training when they coach. They have extra training, access to facilities that doesn't cost them, and they're able to give back their knowledge. So it's like threefold. Like, it's always giving back, and that's like the really important thing that we didn't have, like, in my generation. Like, you didn't have, which wasn't that long ago. You didn't have people who were unknowledgeable of the sport, who played it, had that experience, who were giving back. You only had those who were playing that were inspirational, but we didn't have access to all the tools and all the skills. So, like, this is what we should do. We just see how it's played, but how do they even know how to start in that position, or like, why did she make that move? I don't know. Like, the technology even itself has improved, and there's a lot of opportunity for women now. And if a girl wants to coach, absolutely she should be pushed into it. Should not be just like, maybe you should get a real job. Like, definitely should be entertained, because there's so many different possibilities that they can go about that route, and it's giving back to the community. So why should we encourage that?
Absolutely, like you said. Sorry, go ahead, Ashley.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to ask her. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, it's not even all about the money, too. Like, you want to be able to make a regular living, but it's also about the satisfaction of giving back. Like, just being able to impact other females and just build that community is super cool, too. So,
yeah. If I can make a living doing this impact as somebody would do a nonprofit, why I shouldn't feel bad about it. Like, I shouldn't be put down for it.
Right.
Because some people are, because it's, it's like a volunteerism, like, because there is no professional, there isn't a high level, making and superstar status of the professionalism in women's, but I shouldn't feel bad about it because I now have the free time to ensure that this is being done right. I'm taking care of little girls' dreams and supporting them and making sure that they feel really good about what they're doing. That is an important role, and in order to do it, I have to be free to do that. So
right.
I shouldn't have to feel bad about it.
No, you shouldn't. You should not have to. And I think everyone's goal in life should ultimately be joyful and to be happy. Because if we're stressed, worried about just making money or doing all these things in life like that we don't want to do, like, what's the goal, literally? Like, what is our goal? We want to be able to give back. We want to be able to make other people happy, to fulfill ourselves. And, like, I think that's, in order to do that, we shouldn't have to be made feel guilty for coaching and for giving back. Like, that's ridiculous because everyone's goal in life should be joyful. So, like, why is it someone else's business to put you down for what you love to do? Because what you love to do is going to bring you joy, right?
Taylor, you always know I always say this, and I always believe this. You got to aspire to inspire. Aspire yourself to inspire others.
Absolutely.
So, Amanda, what makes you, why are you considered more than an athlete? If you had to explain someone that you are more than an athlete, how would you explain yourself that you are more than an athlete?
Well, because I have to be. No, I'm joking. But so I'll tell you the story, and then it'll help explain why I feel like I mean I am. So our mom, when I was in 7th grade, I was like borderline tested, the math test 7th grade. You either go into algebra or you go into math 8, and it sort of sets you up. It's sort of sad, but it sets you up for a successful, like, mathematical career, which I majored in chemistry. So I potentially could have linked, like, this specific incident to an situation, an event, to me actually majoring in chemistry, because I ended up going through calculus BC and getting a level 4 on the test, which passed me out of all the math that I had to take my stats. But
Okay, smarty.
yeah,
I had nothing to do.
I was. I can't do calculus anymore. I forgot it.
She could take the math. I'll take English and history. She could do.
Yeah,
Okay.
100%. Because I don't have.
I'll
to
do
that
science.
much, but I had 2 teachers that were not my math teachers that had advocated for me to just take math 8 because that was good. She's really good in sports. She doesn't need to stress herself out. And my mom was like, well, there's not a thing after this when she's, when she's out of college or when she's going into her, it's not softball. There is no professional softball league. So we should push her to be the best version of herself so that, or, we should push her as she can. If she's borderline, why not push her? She could take that challenge as, she's doing it on the softball field. And I think that makes, like, every woman, me included, when we go through all the stressful situations in the sport that we play and we're successful in it, there's no reason why that shouldn't be applied in the classroom, and there's no reason why it shouldn't be applied in other things that we do. So it was a very enlightening process when I went through and I said, like, can I actually do this? And it took me somebody to a business. Can I actually, like, start a business? Like, I've really thought about it, but can I really start it? And it took me until I had gone to a recruiting event, had no business going to, in, like, completely different opposite part of the country, talking to a woman who had started her own softball, like, organization teams, the way that, things were structured and getting them promoted and advertised and running the facility the way that she was. Like, I can do all of that. Like, I'm checking off the boxes. Like, I can do that. There's nothing to say that I can't. There's nothing to say that I can't. But it was sort of like, what skills do I have? And going in both ways. Am I just a jock, or am I, just a woman? Like, what can I be both? That led me to, I can do everything that I want to do. The athlete in me helps me better understand how to relate to the athletes, but there's a lot of management, there's a lot of instructing, there's a lot of budgeting that goes into coaching, into running the business that I run, and the creativity that you have to consider. But can I actually do this? And understanding that it is going to be stressful, so can I handle the stress of it? And I don't need to be perfect, but at the end of the day, is it something that I can set up and develop so that I'm successful? And that was essentially the question that I asked myself when I met her, and she had told me about what she was starting and had started where she is in California. There's no reason why I can't start that here. It's going to be hard, and maybe there's a very small market for it and I can grow it, but there's nothing to say that I can't if I have the passion, if I definitely have the skills, or if I can figure out how to get the skills to do it. There's nothing that I can't do. And that's what makes me absolutely more than an athlete. I think that's what makes all very successful CEOs, owners, like top-level executives that are women, who they are, as former athletes, because they had to develop the skills, and it wasn't to be a better athlete, it was to be a better person, a more successful person. So it would be great to have that transition because we get to stay in the thing that we love. But when it comes down to it, like everything that we do helps us become a better person. And I think that should be the goal with these young girls, and it should be the goal when the JUCO level, when they come to me and they're trying to figure out what the heck they're supposed to do. And when they go into college, like, what am I doing? I don't know really the person that I need to be successful. And it's giving them the autonomy to really thrive and express ideas and to be what they really want to be and not shut them down, but just give them advice in ways that they can, if that's what they want to do, or help them, direct them into a path that makes more sense for what they want that maybe they didn't think of. So that's what made me more than an athlete it was my drive that has made me successful in the way that I thought that I would not be successful prior to meeting that woman. I had not thought about starting my business.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So you are so much more than an athlete, Amanda. You are a businesswoman. You are a coach. You are impacting so many young females, so many people in this world. It's so cool to hear what you're doing and to hear how you are going to empower the next generation of females. We are so grateful that you have been our first guest on Sis. You are just like literally the picture perfect version of like what I aspire to be, what so many female athletes aspire to be, after sports. And so we appreciate you. We appreciate what you're doing. And thank you so much.
Thank y'all for having me. Thank you, Ashley. You're welcome. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in. We will be back here every Tuesday at 7 a.m. This is why we are serious. We'll see you guys next time. Period. Sis.